I want to start today with a word that has basically haunted the entire tech industry for the last 3 years. You hear it in boardrooms, you see it in angry tweets, and it's usually the reason your boss is still afraid to use ChatGPT for anything important. That word is hallucination.
It is the absolute boogeyman. I mean, for the whole LLM world.
The ghost in the machine.
Yeah.
And usually when we use that word, we're talking about a chatbot making up, a fake court case or telling you that the Golden Gate Bridge was built in 1995. It's annoying. It's embarrassing. But usually, nobody dies.
Right. If you're just writing an email or trying to settle a bar bet, the stakes are low. But if you shift the context, if you stop trying to write a marketing blurb and start trying to design a new cancer drug, well, the definition of hallucination changes completely.
The stakes go through the roof.
Exactly. If an AI hallucinates in biology, if it invents a molecule that can't exist, or predicts a chemical bond that isn't actually there, you don't just get a wrong answer. You get a failed clinical trial.
You get millions of dollars just incinerated.
Or worse, you miss a cure that was right in front of you because the AI led you down some blind alley.
And that is why today, February 13th, 2026, feels like such a pivotal moment. We have two massive papers hitting the ecosystem this week, and they are both trying to benchmark truth, but they are doing it in two completely different worlds.
It really is a tale of two realities. On one side, we have Google releasing their updated FACTS Leaderboard. And you should think of this as the ultimate punishing lie detector test for the world's smartest chatbots.
And on the other side...
On the other side, we have Isomorphic Labs, that's the sister company to Google DeepMind, releasing a paper on IsoDDE. This is a new drug design engine that claims to solve problems that even AlphaFold 3 couldn't touch.
So we're talking about the difference between an AI knowing a fact about the world and an AI understanding the actual messy physics of a molecule.
That's it.
So our mission today is to explore the frontier of reliability. And I have to be honest, looking at these sources, reliability feels like a moving target. There was one stat in the FCTS paper that really threw me. It said the absolute best model out there right now, the heavyweight champion of the world, only gets a D+ on their full truthfulness suite.
It's a humbling number, 69%. That is the ceiling right now for pure factual accuracy across the board.
Ouch. So we have text models struggling to pass, a high school history test, but then over in the biology paper, they're talking about finding cryptic pockets on proteins that shouldn't even exist until a drug forces them open.
That is the paradox we need to unravel.
Yeah.
Let's start with the text side, because I think everyone listening assumes that by 2026, with GPT-5 and Gemini 3 out there, that AI has basically solved facts.
You would think so. I mean, I assume that if I ask it who the president was in 1845, it knows.
Okay.
But looking at this Google paper, the FACTS Leaderboard, it seems like the old ways of testing these models were just too easy.
They were saturated. Yeah, that's the technical term researchers use.
Saturated.
The models were acing the old tests' benchmarks, like MMLU getting 90-95% scores. It looked like they were geniuses.
So they looked great on paper.
Looked like geniuses, but then you'd use them in the real world to write a report, and they'd still make things up.
They'd still hallucinate.
Exactly. So the FCTS suite is designed to be punishing. It's not one test. It's 4 distinct sub-leaderboards.
Okay, let's unpack these, because I think the way they test this is actually really clever. Let's start with the first one. FCRITS multimodal. This is where the model looks at an image and has to answer questions about it.
Correct. And it's not just, is there a cat in this picture? It's checking for specific, verifiable data. One of the test cases they highlight was an image of a train, specifically the locomotor FSBC 2203.
Okay, I'm looking at the notes here. It's a big orange train.
Right. Now, the model needs to tell you the exact year that specific train model was introduced. The answer is 1949. But here is the nuance that matters for anyone using these tools for work. The rubric checks for 2 things. First, coverage. Did you actually find the fact? Did you say 1949?
And the second thing?
No contradiction. Did you avoid saying something wrong? Did you avoid saying it was built in 1945?
Wait, isn't that the same thing? If I get it right, I don't get it wrong.
Not necessarily. A model could say, this looks like a train from the late 40s. That scores high on no contradiction because it's not false, but it scores low on coverage because it didn't give the specific year.
Ah, I see. It's about precision versus safety.
Exactly. And looking at the results, there is a real split in personality between the big models. The Gemini models seem to be the eager beavers. They have high coverage, they find the facts. But the GPT models, they act more like a careful librarian. They lean heavily toward no contradiction.
So GPT would rather stay silent or be vague than risk being wrong.
In many cases, yes. Gemini attempts to answer more fully, which leads to higher recall. It finds more stuff, but it carries a slightly higher risk of slipping up. It really depends on what you want the AI for. Do you want a brainstorming partner who throws out a lot of ideas, or do you want a strict fact checker?
Speaking of strict fact-checking, let's talk about the second category. FCTS parametric. This is the closed book test, right? No Google search, just pure memory.
Yes, and this is where the benchmark gets really mean. Use something called adversarial sampling.
That sounds aggressive. What does that mean in plain English?
Basically, they took a huge batch of questions and fed them to open source models, the smaller, slightly dumber models you can run on a laptop. If those models could answer the question, the researchers threw the question out.
Oh, wow. So they basically said, if the rookie can answer this, it's too easy for the pros.
Precisely.
Yeah.
They only kept the questions that the average AI fails at, the hardtail of knowledge. And this brings us to a fascinating strategy called hedging.
I love this concept. In the corporate world, hedging is usually seen as being wishy-washy. But here, you're saying it's a sign of intelligence.
It is. If you look at the comparison between, say, GPT-03 and GPT-5, GPT-03 actually has higher raw accuracy, about 57%. It guesses right more often.
Huh.
But, and this is the key thing, GPT-5 has a hedging rate of 13.3%.
So 13% of the time, GPT-5 just looks at the question and says, I pass.
Yes, and because of that, its attempted accuracy, the accuracy when it actually decides to speak, is significantly higher. It's like a student who knows that a wrong answer subtracts points from their score, so they skip the questions they aren't sure about.
Which honestly is exactly what I want my AI to do. If I ask who played harmonica on the Rockford Files theme song and it doesn't know, just tell me. Don't make up a guy named Harmonica Steve.
Exactly. Harmonica Steve is the enemy. We want the model to know its own limitations. And that leads to the third category, FACTS search. This is where the model is allowed to use a tool, specifically the Brave Search API.
Now, logically, this should be the easiest part. Just Google it.
You'd think. But they test on what they call wiki2hop questions. This is where you have to connect two separate articles to get the answer.
Give me an example.
Something like, what is the capital of the country where the inventor of the zipper was born? You can't just search that string. You have to look up the inventor, find his birth country, then take that result and look up that country's capital.
That's a lot of cognitive load. You have to hold one piece of info while looking for the next.
It is, and the finding here was surprising. The winner was Gemini 3 Pro, scoring nearly 84%. But here's the kicker. It's searched less often than the dumber models.
Wait, it searched less but got a better score? That feels counterintuitive.
That's the sign of metacognition. It knows what it knows. Lower performing models like Grok 4 were frantically searching for everything, even stuff they should have known. Gemini 3 Pro seems to have a better internal gauge of, I know this fact already, versus, I need to look this up. It's efficient.
Okay, so we have visuals, memory, and search. The last category is FTS grounding. This is the corporate use case. Here is a 50-page PDF. Answer this question based only on the document.
The trap here is what they call ineligible responses. Let's say you upload a quarterly financial report and ask, summarize the financial loss in Q3. A bad model might say, the company faced significant challenges in Q3.
Which is technically true.
It's true, but it's useless. It's vague. The FACTS benchmark penalizes that heavily. It forces the model to dig out the specific numbers. If you're vague, you fail.
So when you average all these distinct tests, finding facts and images, remembering hard trivia, connecting search results, and reading long docs, we get the FACTS score. And as we mentioned at the top, the current heavyweight champion, Gemini 3 Pro, is sitting at 68.8%.
Which means nearly 1 in 3 complex factual tasks still result in a failure. We are very far from salt.
It's actually a little terrifying if you rely on these things for critical work. 69% accuracy is a D+. If I got a D+ on a project, I'd be in trouble.
Right, and that's for text. That's for things where the answer is written down somewhere. Now imagine if you got a D+ on designing a drug to cure Alzheimer's.
Yeah, that's not an option. You can't hallucinate a cure.
Which brings us to our second source, Isomorphic Labs and their new engine, IsoDDE.
This is the shift from digital hallucinations to molecular ones. Isomorphic Labs is essentially the drug discovery arm of the Google DeepMind ecosystem. And this paper is a direct response to the limitations of AlphaFold 3.
Now, AlphaFold 3 was a huge deal when it came out. It predicted protein structures. But it had a weakness that kept drug hunters up at night, the generalization gap.
Can you explain that in plain English?
Think of it like a chef. AlphaFold 3 is an incredible line cook for dishes it has seen before. If you ask for a slight variation on a pasta dish, it nails it. But if you hand it a basket of weird alien ingredients it has never seen and say, make something delicious, it struggles. It tries to force the new ingredients into old recipes.
And in drug discovery, we need the alien ingredients.
Exactly. We want first-in-class drugs. Drugs for targets we have never successfully drugged before. If the AI only knows how to design drugs that look like aspirin, we aren't going to cure new diseases.
Ah,
To test this, IsoDDE created a benchmark with a great name, Runs and Poses.
sounds like a Guns N' Roses cover band.
It does. But it's actually a rigorous test of predicting how a drug binds to a protein. It specifically looked at the hardest bin cases, where the protein in the drug had 0 to 20% similarity to anything in the training data.
So this is the deep end of the pool, the novel stuff.
It is. In this category, AlphaFold 3 only had a success rate of about 23%. IsoDDE hit 50%.
They doubled the accuracy on the hardest stuff. That's a massive jump in this field.
It is.
Yep.
And how they did it is even more interesting. It comes down to understanding the physics, not just memorizing the shapes. This brings us to my favorite term in the paper, the cryptic pocket.
It sounds like something from a spy novel, a cryptic pocket.
It's actually cooler than a spy novel. Think of a protein not as a rigid statue, but as a wriggling, breathing machine. Sometimes a protein has a pocket, a place where a drug can stick, that is completely invisible when the protein is just floating around by itself.
Invisible, so how do we know it's there?
That's the problem. It's like a secret door in a wall that only opens if you push a specific brick. If you just look at the wall, you see solid stone. There is no hole. But if you have the key, the drug, the wall shifts and opens up.
And the AI found the secret door without having the key.
That's the breakthrough. IsoDDE looked at a protein called cereblon. In its natural state, the apo structure, there is no pocket. But IsoDDE analyzed the sequence and essentially predicted if a specific molecule comes near here, this wall will open up.
So it predicted a parking spot for a car that wasn't there yet on a street that looked like a solid wall.
That is a great analogy. It successfully modeled the binding of a molecule called SB40A5483 into a pocket that effectively doesn't exist until the drug forces it into existence. This is called induced fit. AlphaFold 3 can't really do this reliably because it relies too much on what it's seen before. IsoDDE is simulating the flexibility of the biology.
There was another example that made me laugh. Well, as much as you can laugh at molecular biology, the antibody example.
The OPA membrane program.
Right. So help me visualize this. You have a bacteria with a protein on its outer skin. You want an antibody to stick to the outside. AlphaFold 3 took the antibody and put it.
Where? It put the antibody on the wrong side of the membrane,
Yeah.
essentially inside the bacteria, just floating in the wrong space.
Mm-hmm.
It got a DocQ score of 0.00.
0.00. It failed completely.
A total hallucination.
Right.
It didn't understand the physical constraint that this is a membrane wall you can't just walk through. It was just matching shapes without understanding the context.
And IsoDDE.
IsoDDE nailed it. DocQ score of 0.943. It positioned the antibody perfectly on the extracellular surface. This is critical because antibodies are huge therapeutics, but modeling them is a nightmare because of the CDRH3 loop.
The what loop?
The CDRH3. Imagine the antibody as a hand trying to grab a ball. The CDRH3 loop is like the tip of the middle finger. It moves around constantly, it wiggles, it changes shape. It is hyper-variable. Because it changes so much, it's very hard to predict where it will be at any given microsecond.
And IsoDDE figured out where the wiggling finger would land.
It did. IsoDDE outperformed the next best model, Boltz 2, by nearly 20 times 19.8x to be exact, on high-quality predictions for these interfaces.
That is a staggering margin. It's not 20% better, it's 20 times better.
It shows that we are crossing a threshold. We aren't just guessing shapes anymore. We are approaching a level of precision where we can design antibodies on a computer and have a reasonable expectation that they will work in a test tube.
And that leads to the final and perhaps most mind-blowing piece of the IsoDDE puzzle, affinity. Because it's one thing to know where a drug sticks, it's another to know how tightly it sticks.
Binding affinity is the holy grail. If it sticks too loosely, the drug falls off and doesn't work. If it sticks too tight, it might be toxic or stay in the body too long. Traditionally, if you wanted to calculate this on a computer, you use something called FEP plus free energy perturbation.
Sounds expensive.
It is incredibly expensive. It's a pure physics simulation. It literally calculates the movement and energy of every single atom in the system over time. It is incredibly accurate, but it burns massive amounts of Coulomb power. It's like trying to calculate the weather by tracking every single raindrop.
It's the brute force method.
And IsoDDE beat it.
Wait, the AI, which is just guessing based on patterns, beat the physics simulation that calculates every atom.
On the benchmark, yes. IsoDDE's predictions for binding affinity correlated better with reality than the FEP plus physics simulation. This is a massive shift. We are moving from simulation, which is slow, hard, and expensive, to prediction, which is fast and scalable.
So let's try to synthesize this. We have two papers dropping this week. On one hand, Google's SETS leaderboard tells us that even our best brains, the text models, are essentially C students when it comes to hard facts. They hallucinate trains and get confused by Wikipedia rabbit holes.
Correct. They struggle with the rigidity of truth in language.
But on the other hand, IsoDDE is showing us that in the world of biology, hallucination is actually becoming prediction. It's seeing invisible pockets and predicting antibody loops that have never been seen before with accuracy that beats physics engines.
It is a fascinating divergence. In the text world, we are punishing models for being creative with facts. The FACTS ETS benchmark penalizes you if you answer, the company had a hard year, instead of, the company lost $4 million. It demands rigidity.
Right. We want them to be boring librarians.
But in the biological world, IsoDDE is being rewarded for its creativity, or rather its insight. It's being rewarded for correctly predicting the atomic position of a drug in a pocket that mathematically shouldn't exist yet. It understands the potential of the physics better than it understands the rigidity of a fact.
So what does this mean for the person listening right now? If they aren't a drug designer, why should they care about the cryptic pockets?
For the FACTS ETS paper, it gives you a ruler. If you are using AI for work analyzing contracts, checking historical data, you now have a metric. You need to look at the hedging rate of your tools. If your AI assistant never says, I don't know, you shouldn't trust it. You want the model that scores high on FACS parametric, specifically the one that knows when to shut up.
And for IsoDDE?
This is the bigger picture. We are moving from virtual screening, which is basically guessing which keys might fit a lock to rational design. We're entering an era where we can engineer molecules for specific, novel targets. If you have a disease caused by a protein that was previously considered undruggable because it had no pockets, IsoDDE says, look closer, the pocket might be cryptic.
It's almost like the AI is telling us the door isn't locked, you just don't see the handle.
That is beautifully put, and I'll leave you with this thought to mull over. We constantly worry about AI hallucinating and deceiving us. But look at IsoDDE. It beat the physics simulation not by calculating every atom, but by learning the patterns of how matter interacts. It developed an intuition for physics.
An intuition for physics.
Yes. We might be entering a world where AI understands the fundamental physical laws of our biology, how proteins fold, how drugs bind, better than it understands the messy, ambiguous, human-made constructs of language and history. It might be easier for an AI to cure a disease than to accurately summarize a news article without lying.
That is both hopeful and slightly unsettling.
As all great technology should be.
Indeed. Well, thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the benchmarks of 2026.
My pleasure.
And to you listening, next time your chatbot refuses to answer a question, don't get annoyed. Check its hedging rate. Sometimes, I don't know is the most intelligent thing it can say. We'll see you in the next deep dive.